the guidelines are continental in their reach. They relate to elections on the continent. So the launch relates to everything continent-wise. But secondly, South Africa cannot be an island of success on its own. We've got to influence democratic elections on the continent, and this is one way of making this huge investment in ensuring that social media does not imperil a conduct of good elections on the continent.
جمهورية مصر العربية هي من الدول الإفريقية.
The Arab Republic of Egypt is part of the African continent.
التعاون الدائم بين جمهورية مصر العربية وكافة الدول الإفريقية.
And the continuous cooperation between Egypt and all African countries.
في كافة المجالات.
In all fields.
وأهمها إدارة العملية الانتخابية.
And most importantly is the management of the election process.
وبالتالي إن الحدث ده وجودنا فيه مش أول مرة، إحنا دائم الحضور في آخر مرة بنين.
And therefore, our presence here, this is not the first time. We also had participated also in the meeting in Benin.
وكان في برضو في كاب تاون 2020.
And also in Cape Town in 2020.
فدائما على اطلاع بكافة المستجدات التي تدار في القارة الإفريقية وصولا إلى أعلى مستوى في إدارة العملية الانتخابية.
So we are always aware of all the developments in this regard, especially the management of the election process.
Well, firstly, let me say that I'm very pleased that the countries are here in big numbers. I think it's very important. So we have the election management bodies that are here, most of whom are having elections this year, counted more than 20. So it means it's a good platform, spending these 3 days sharing experiences on how we're going to socialize these principles and guidelines. All of you know that we're in a digital era now. So it's important that we capacitate and empower our EMBs as they manage this election, particularly because, elections are always volatile. There are always sensitivities. As you go into election, people are talking about rigging or the elections will be rigged. So the credibility of elections are always critical, and therefore the EMBs must be well prepared to deal with the challenge. And I think with our IEC hosting this session to launch these guidelines and principles, for us is a step in the right direction at the right time, so that we are able to ensure that we can minimize accusations of rigging and so on. There'll always be people who want to make accusations, but if we are all well prepared, all EMBs in the continent, you can be guaranteed of free and fair election throughout the continent.
Thank you. Every one of us as electoral management bodies have powers that we derive from the law. In South Africa, for example, these guidelines may be used in part to add to the code of conduct. We prescribe that code when an election comes, and we can, in fact, use that process to enforce behavior on social media. It is evident that, the wars that we have seen on billboards, on posters and things, have moved on to social media. And it is in that same way that we will regulate social media as we have done with posters and billboards. And we do think it provides every one of our electoral management bodies with an opportunity to move from where they are. Some countries will be more advanced than others, but we want to encourage everybody to catch up, and we want to move at speed together.
The guidelines are continental in their reach. They relate to elections on the continent. So the launch relates to everything continent-wise. But secondly, South Africa cannot be an island of success on its own. We've got to influence democratic elections on the continent, and this is one way of making this huge investment in ensuring that social media does not imperil a conduct of good elections on the continent.
Yeah, quite important as we are hosting we'll be holding our elections towards the end of this year, I think around November. So the principles and guidelines are really coming at an appropriate time for us to incorporate and look at all the possible challenges and risks within the space of social media that we can perhaps, as part of our planning, also consider and to include to really manage the misinformation and disinformation within the space of social media.
First of all, the guidelines are grounded on existing continental normative frameworks, the Human Rights and People's Charter of the AU, the Charter on Elections and Democracy on the continent. So first of all, that's the basis on which from which they proceed. The second point is that they have certain suggestions for EMBs, building the capacity of EMBs to manage social media, communicate using social media, do education using social media. The third aspect is the role of other stakeholders. For instance, tech companies. They need to set up partnerships with tech companies to set up frameworks of cooperation so that content moderation in the interest of good elections can happen at the behest of the tech companies partnering with election management bodies on the continent.